Joined on the line now by Alex Martin. He's a commercial lawyer, owner of Taurus Lawyers over in Melbourne. Thanks for joining the show, Alex.
Hi, Will. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
You're sounding good, mate, over in Melbourne. I know it's a bit stormy, so hopefully the phone lines hold up for us. Let's talk about lying in the workplace. It's becoming a big cost for businesses around Australia, isn't it?
It sure is. Employers suffer about $1.5 billion worth of loss from employee fraud. So we're not just talking about stealing the office stapler or telling a white lie about pulling a sickie. We're talking about serious fraud that happens every day in Australian offices.
Right. So everyone tells those little white lies, but we're talking about, well, crime, correct? We're talking about criminal acts and deceit.
Yes. Sometimes it's crime. Sometimes it's really a civil thing, whether it's theft of office money or office assets is a crime, but sometimes it's a breach of contract or something else. But lying is the common element to all of those things.
So how are we meant to tell when someone's lying? It might sound like a common question or a common sense answer, but how do you know if someone's lying to you?
Yeah, well, there are signs. So I think that's a surprise to a lot of listeners that you can actually tell. There are scientifically proven signs that people are lying. But the first step is to understand that people don't like lying. They're not good at it, and they feel uncomfortable when they do it. So when they feel uncomfortable, they exhibit certain behaviours, which you can detect if you're watching closely.
Like what? I would like to know. How am I meant to pick up when someone's lying?
Sure. So the first issue is you've got to look at their baseline behaviour. So it's not like every person out there looks at their toes when they lie or becomes fidgety when they lie. You might be a fidgety person naturally. So the first step is to look at what is the person's baseline behaviour when they're calm and when they're truthful. Are they, vague or are they specific? Are they fidgety? Do they look you in the eye? All those sort of things. So you start off with their baseline behaviour and observing them normally. And if you're in a workplace with someone, you're probably very familiar with how they normally behave. And then the second step is you ask specific questions. So you have to catch them in a lie. So you don't ask them vague questions like, you would have understood all your emails yesterday. You say, did you read that email yesterday? You say very specific questions so that when they answer, they need to either lie or tell the truth.
Right. And the questions you are asking, you know the answer to them.
Yes, that's right. So to be looking at particular conduct, did you take that money? You want to know whether they took the money or, have you moved that truck, to your house or whatever it is. You ask them specific questions, very short, very sharp and very specific about that conduct. And then you listen very carefully to the answer because the person who answers it is very likely to try to avoid lying altogether because they don't feel comfortable with it. So the very famous example was given when Harvey Oswald was asked, about JFK. He was asked, "Did you kill the president?" So it's a great question. It's very specific. It's not, did you murder the president, which, it could be confusing about what murder means, but did you kill the president? And he answered, rather than answering, no, I didn't, he answered, I've not been charged with that. So it's a very famous example of someone avoiding telling a lie by telling you something else. So, yep.
Well, we've got off track a little bit, but I'm very interested in that. Does that mean Harvey Oswald was the killer of JFK?
It means that statement was indicative of a lie. So, yes, that's right.
Very good. We are speaking to Alex Martin. He's a commercial lawyer, so knows his way around answering questions like that. Very good, Alex.
Sure.
What are some strategies to help us deal with either employees, colleagues, people in the office space, if I guess we do in fact catch them telling lies or being deceitful? How do we deal with it?
So I think the first thing is you've got to interview that person and give them a chance to explain themselves. So you've got to sit down with them in a quiet space away from everybody else, interview them and ask them to explain their behaviour so that they have a full chance to explain their side of the story. Sometimes you're dealing with subjective behaviour, like if you say, did you harass that person? Well, that's a subjective question. You need to be specific. Did you touch that person or did you say this comment or whatever? So I think sitting down in a quiet space and going through what they did and didn't do and getting to the nub of the facts is the first step to dealing with a deceptive employee.
Why is there specific reasons why people lie other than the obvious trying to get away with doing something wrong and they know they've done it? Is there anything to show why people do it in the workplace?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, there are sociopaths out there who lie compulsively, but that's very rare, and people often throw around that term sociopath as if, as if it's common, and it's very rare. So you're very unlikely to know anyone who's a genuine sociopath or psychopath. Generally, people lie because they're desperate. So in my experience with investigating employees telling lies, generally they're gamblers, or they're got drug habits, or they've got some reason that they need the money, and they take the money maybe originally planning to pay it back, and then they're not able to pay it back, and then they get away with it and they take more and so on. And generally they're kind of desperate as a result of their addiction.
What's becoming more dangerous or threatening businesses more? Are customers and suppliers ripping them off, or their own employees? It's sounding like $1.5 billion. It's quite a number.
It's a lot of money. Yeah, certainly in general terms, the person who's most likely to not pay you is a customer.
Yes.
So I think the first thing business owners should look at is what are their dealings with customers? Are they getting paid up front? Are they getting paid on time? All that sort of stuff. But then the second most likely is actually your own employees. And the person who's most likely to actually steal money from you, that steal cash from a bank account or whatever, is definitely an employee. So the biggest losses in terms of direct cash losses are from employees, not from customers.
I guess just tying it all together, Alex, it stresses the importance of hiring trustworthy employees and looking after culture within the workplace if you are a business owner.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a number of things you can do. You've got to be careful when you're hiring, and then you've got to manage people carefully. And then when there's a report of something, investigate it in an objective way, and if you need to, get a third party in to investigate, and that gives everyone kind of assurance that any report is being dealt with properly.
Okay, very good. Thanks so much for your time on 6PR here, Alex. Really appreciate your time.
It's been a pleasure, Will. Thanks for having me.